There is a church in the depths of the salt plains, a forgotten temple consecrated to a benevolent and righteous God. It was desecrated by an arrogant and ruthless king. The blood of the faithful dyed his steel red. The god shed his tears over the valley, transforming it into a wasteland of salt and misery. Before fading from the memory of men, the god cursed the defiler to become a hated and repulsive being that would poison and corrode everything he touched, imprisoning him with only his crown to remind him of all he had lost. People call him the Cantigaster, and everyone knows his story. Welcome to Sultanix Tavern, where I'll be taking a break from my usual calligraphy to show you some of my books. And what better book to start this with than Crown of Salt. It is a ttrpg adventure written by Tania Herrero, who publishes her work under the Breadworm brand. So what is this about? I fell in love with this book as soon as I saw samples of its artwork. If you want to sell a book to me, all you have to do is make sure there are a lot of strong contrasts of red and black, and I will absolutely pay for it. The author does a wonderful job of contrasting it with teal. The art style is consistent throughout the book and does so much to immerse you into this world. The writing in the book is just as good. The author does so much with so little text to pull you in and make you really feel what's going on. So we'll mostly have a look at the artwork and the story it tells, and briefly go through some of the adventures from the book, such as hirelings and the rooms you find in its dungeons and so on. The book starts by giving you 12 excellent reasons to care about this setting and the adventure you're going on. Perhaps you are tied into it by wanting to kill the Cantigaster for a cure to any ailment. Perhaps you seek the grimoire of the Forgotten King's sorcerer, or you're in competition with Fergus Ferguson, the famous monster hunter. Each of these will tie your characters into the world, make them care, and potentially give them reasons to get into conflict with each other. We start in the town of Saltburg, where the corrosive salt makes everything crumble and fall apart, but the people keep coming there, desperate people like your party, seeking a temple that is but a myth. One of the first NPCs you meet is a crow who has been here for God knows how long and speaks only one word which it repeats incessantly: liar. The proprietors of this tavern believe it belonged to someone and is still looking for its master. You can then go on to take some hirelings with you. Again, very little text on each of them, but enough to give them reason to care about all of this. They each have a personal goal of their own, but as this goes deeper, you may discover that they are in fact eldritch oozes who have devoured their victim and taken on their memories and abilities. For they wish to awaken an elder horror, and to do that they must kill the Cantigaster and acquire the blade of the promised princess. Whether you hire them or not, they will follow the party and do their best to sabotage you. After going through the wilderness, with its own random encounters, you reach the descent, where you go down into the subterranean land where the temple is rumored to be. In the rifts, the lips crack, the wounds burn, an acrid smell permeates every breath. You get simple rules for exploring this place. Mostly, you need to go through 4 random events before you reach the Forgotten Princess event and finally the temple you seek. Each of the 24 random events is so good you will regret showing only 4 of them to the players. I suppose it has a lot of replayability in that way. So just to show you a few, I'm really liking finding a book with the name of one of the characters on it that narrates their entire life, and the last page saying the character took the book and began to read, unaware of what watched them from the shadows behind them. It was already too late. And then a drop of blood from their nose falls on the page. Remember Garrick? A mercenary approaches you, knows your names, and claims to have been a member of the party all along. And every time your characters interact with them, you ask the players to develop one memory with him. Or you could meet the survivor, who will recognize one of your hirelings as wearing the face of one of her dead companions. I love this one, a polar bear. large and absolutely white, yet as black as a negative image. It is a bear, but it's not. It has a magical eye that activates one of its abilities each round. For example, your equipment suddenly becomes magnetized, or the polar bear vibrates, distorts, separates. In reality, there were always 2 polar bears. Good luck. You may encounter the Forgotten King's lost army, still faithful to the king and on their mission. Instead of quicksand, you may fall into quick salt. You may encounter non-proprietary rust bugs or goblin shark goblins. And of course, the salinized fossils. And once you're through these random events, you begin to hear the tale of the promised princess. Once upon a time, there was a princess from a distant kingdom. She fell in love with a king whose name the world has forgotten. The king had to march to protect his kingdom, but he promised himself to the princess and gave her a blade that, like their love, would never rust. And yet, only the familiar of the king's sorcerer returned. The promised princess followed it after the king. The world also forgot her name. You may find all this out in the tomb of the promised princess. You get a simple map, a brief description of each room. Most notably, room number 3 has her sword, and the sword is arranged like someone put it there on display. And who could it be? What creature would do something like that? Well, of course, it is Maramagdus, the salinized dragon. He still remembers the taste of the soft flesh of the promised princess, and he knows her story. You may notice that the rest of the story you're about to hear is a bit different than the one we started the book with. It's up to you whom to trust, Maramagdus, who devoured the princess, or the eldritch oozes with goals of their own. And so the dragon tells you of Enhidros, an elder horror who sleeps in an abyssal ocean. Once upon a time, there was a village by the sea. Its inhabitants vanished, but those who wore their faces remained. They built a temple, a gargantuan shadow, where they fed their sleeping gods with the memories of men. One prisoner escaped and brought his tale to a forgotten king. The king marched his army to prevent the awakening of the elder horror. But the abyssal gate opened, spewing forth the brine that devoured those lands. However, nothing burns brighter than a soul. And nothing holds more power than an icon. This specific piece of art is why I bought the book. Again, red and black, my only weakness. I love when ttrpg books are brave enough to spend whole pages on just artwork and a single sentence. This does for me so much more than if this page had been filled with stat blocks and rules and grids. If you allow yourself a minute to internalize images like these, I believe it can really help inform how you run the game and how you present it to your players. After the dragon, we approach the temple. There is a barrier at the entrance where you may have a confrontation with your hirelings, and beyond the gates, the temple awaits. Here is another immersive piece of artwork, a drawing of a dark tunnel with nothing but the words, "Silence now, he can hear you." Once you are in the temple, the Cantigaster knows about you. He will start roaming, looking for you, because he has but one purpose, to keep the elder horror sealed, no matter the cost. He will regenerate constantly and only die if the crown of salt is destroyed, which may be the goal of some of the characters. But if the crown is destroyed, a sequence of apocalyptic events begins, and it can only be stopped by performing a ritual. And to find the ritual, you must complete the dungeon. I'll leave it up to you to read the dungeon in detail, so I'll just briefly go through it with some sample rooms. It has 2 levels. You get each room marked on the minimap, though if you have issues seeing red and green, that won't be very useful to you. Once again, the author does so much with few words. Here you're given the strategy of the hirelings. The crow will lead you to the grimoire where the ritual is. No rooms and no words are wasted. You may find things like useful treasure, bits of lore, healing waters, and so on. Oh, and the power armor, so big it needs 2 people to operate. If you are successful, you may find Ibrakir's grimoire and the ritual, which has, in hastily written calligraphy, someone should do that, the details on how to seal the Elder Horror once again. And here are the echoes of the familiar tale, a sacrifice of a noble soul to protect the temple with its fire, and the sacrifice of an icon of humanity. If you have killed the Forgotten King, the previous blind guardian of this temple, one of you may take his place. If you have enjoyed the book, the author has at least 3 more. If there's interest, we can show them on the channel as well, including opening these 2 for the first time together. There is a link below to the author's website where you can get these books, and to her Patreon to support the development of her own ttrpg. And yes, the preview of the ttrpg is red and black as well. Until next time, my friends, I'm Salty Nick, and I wish you steady winds and smooth sailing.